Hello, everyone, and welcome to our online class here. Um, Hopefully, if you're seeing this, you also saw the links that I posted under the module for Friday that will take you, one of them will take you to the databases that I'm going to be talking about here, because I'm going to be talking about doing research in this video, and the other one will take you to a website that will give you some information about doing citations. In a way, I'm glad that this is the thing that I'm doing online because this is probably the most boring shit that I have to tell you about all semester. But it's also important, doing research is like a big part of this class. It is one of the like big skills we're supposed to be working on here. So I'll talk about those links and where they take you and the specifics about the databases and stuff. But I want to talk first just about doing research in general, why we do it, what the point is, what we're supposed to get out of it. I feel like the way that a lot of us approach research, and definitely the way I approached research when I was, in your shoes at the beginning of college, is that we kind of just like look for a source that agrees with us, that like is saying the same thing that we are, and then we're like, well, look, I'm right because this person also said it. And there's a certain value to that. But the way you want to think about doing research at the college level, and especially when you guys get, more into your major and stuff and you're, more experts in your field and everything, the way you want to think about doing research is taking part in a critical conversation. That when we write essays, when professors write essays, when academics are publishing essays in journals and stuff, what they're really doing is seeing what everyone else has said and then kind of making their own argument in that context. So it can actually be a good thing when you're doing research to find someone who disagrees with you, and then you can be like, well, let me tell you why this person's wrong, and actually, this is why my essay is so important because I'm gonna, correct this other person on what they've been getting wrong. It's kind of like if you imagine, you're having some kind of conversation or argument with like five friends or something, and the people next to you are like, well, I think this, and the person across from you is like, well, I think this, and then you come up and you're like, well, I agree with that guy. It's like, oh well, then we don't really need what you're saying then if you're just going to agree with what someone else has already said. And I'm not going to hold you guys to this standard in our class. We're just trying to get used to doing this stuff. But when academics are trying to write essays to publish in a journal or to write a book or something, if you find someone else who's already said the same thing you're trying to say, that's actually a very bad thing. That kind of means that they beat you to it. And that's been taken already. And you have to find a way to like, it's not that you have to like reinvent the wheel or come up with something totally new, but you have to find a way to make what you're saying kind of original and unique. And again, I'm not going to hold you guys to that standard in our class, but just to give you a sense of what it means to like do research in college, is that you want to get a sense of what the conversation is currently and then find your own way into that so that you're adding something, or you're correcting something that people have gotten wrong. So we're doing more than just looking for someone that agrees with us, right? It can be good to find someone who disagrees with you and then, break down their argument and show why you're right and they're wrong and that kind of thing. Oh, one thing I'll say about the research for our class. So I asked you for a certain number of sources to be either from the databases or from a book. So for those ones, you're going to want to, yeah, I'm going to talk to you about the databases in a minute with the link that I posted that takes you to the library page, or obviously a book. You can go to the physical library. I know people never want to actually go to the library, but I actually have really good experiences with going to the library when I was doing research. I definitely wasn't a freshman or a sophomore. I was definitely like a senior or something. But sometimes, like the way that they organize all the books in the library is that they'll have all the stuff on the same topic in the same place. So sometimes, if you're searching online, you'll type in your keywords or whatever, and the things will come up. But it might not be the same things that you'd find if you go to the library and you're actually looking at the shelves and you can find like something that you weren't even looking for. I definitely had that experience a lot. And then you can actually see the book and you can look at the table of contents and it's just like easier to deal with. You can also get help from like librarians and stuff. So going to the library is definitely something that I would recommend in general. Um, but so the databases, let's talk about that. So when you click that link that I put on the Canvas page, it'll take you to just like a big list of databases. You can also get there. I just wanted to make it easy since I'm not in class to show you the whole process, and it's pretty hard, it turns out, to do that in a video for me to like show you me clicking around and getting there. So I just wanted to give you the direct link. But if you go to the school's homepage, ucc.edu, and you type in library in the search bar, one of the results should be the homepage for the library. What is it? The McKay Library or whatever it's called. And once you get to the library homepage, on the side it'll say databases, and then you click that, and that's the link that I gave to you guys. So then you get there and you see all these different databases, right? There's so many of them, they all have different names. And depending on what kind of class you're taking or what kind of research you're trying to do, there might be some that are better than others. Like if you were taking a business class, the ones that I'm going to tell you about probably wouldn't be the best ones to use. I don't know, maybe they would. But different disciplines have like different databases that are the best ones to use. So I'm going to give you three out of that big list there, and these really should be all that you need for our class. So I would write this down maybe, or definitely make sure you remember this so that you know where to click when you're looking at all those databases. So the first one that I'll give you is JSTOR. It's JSTOR. That one to me was always the best. That's where I would start if I were you guys. I would start with JSTOR. That one is good for obviously literature or history, philosophy, anything like that. I don't know if it might be okay for science kind of stuff too, but those things I specifically have experience using this one with. So JSTOR is one. Another one that I'll give you is EBSCO, 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 and then the third one is Project Muse. So that one's Project Muse. So again, I would write those down or make sure that you know them so that you know where to go when you're looking through all those databases. So, oh, one thing I wanted to say. For the source that doesn't need to be from the databases, I didn't ask for all of them to be from there. I gave you the option for at least one of your, I forget what it says. Look back at the assignment sheet and it tells you how many need to be. I don't want to give you bad information, but whichever ones don't need to be from a database or a book, you can just use the internet for that. But I would stay away from using like those study guide kind of things, like Spark Notes or Schmoop or Lit Charts or whatever they're called. Those are just not very reliable. Who wrote those? I don't know. Nobody knows really. And just any kind of study guide thing I would avoid. What I would try to look for is maybe like newspaper articles or some kind of website that you've like heard of, so something that seems just a little more credible than those like study guide type sites. Newspapers are especially good. I found good stuff through like New York Times and stuff like that. Newspapers publish reviews of books. So I don't know. I mean, I guess the stuff we're doing is kind of old, but maybe you can find something like that. Okay, so those are the databases. Let me give you one other thing kind of on that. So when you're trying to figure out what kind of source to use, when you're thinking about, well, what kind of research am I going to do? There's kind of two main options. One is to find a source that is also writing about the story you're writing about. The stories we're writing about are pretty famous, especially the James Joyce and Virginia Woolf. Those are like two of the most famous authors ever, honestly. So for those ones, you should definitely be able to find stuff. I definitely have found essays about Araby and Evelyn that I've read. I think through JSTOR. Um, but yeah, you should be able. So one thing you can do is look for other people writing about the same story that you're writing about, and you should be able to find some of that. The other option is that you can do some research just like on your topic itself. So if you're writing about gender or gender roles or how women were treated in the 1920s or the kind of sexism that they faced, you can find an essay that's just about gender stereotypes or an essay that's about sexism or maybe something with some specific information. If you're writing about Evelyn, maybe you could look up something about, well, what were the laws around women and gender in 1905 in Ireland. I wonder, for a story like The Stranger, I wonder, like, is it even legal for the woman in The Stranger to divorce her husband if she wanted to? What would happen to her if she divorced her husband? What would that be viewed like societally? Would people judge her? Would she be ostracized and cast out of society for being divorced? I don't know. Maybe you could do some research like that though to find out about laws and things. And you want to make sure you're doing it by the country. Because I always read things where, in one of these essays, people say, oh, well, women got the right to vote in 1920. And it's like, well, that's true in America. But I don't think any of our stories actually took place in America. So if you're talking about the characters in one of our stories, make sure you're looking at like the country that they're from, the time period it was, what were the laws about it. But yeah, you can either look for an article about the story you're writing about, or just about your more general topic. Obviously, if you're doing the historical topic, any kind of historical research can help with that. So yeah, you either want to look for something about the story or something about the topic. Okay, so once you're in the databases, let's say you're on JSTOR, right, and you're trying to find something, you want to use your best kind of judgment in terms of what you want to type in, like think about using Google or search engines. Like, you know how sometimes if you type something in, you're not getting the results that you want, you have to like change the way that you're searching for it. You might have to do something like that. If you type in, James Joyce Araby, I think there will be some stuff that comes up. But you might want to also add like gender or something like that. You just might want to play with the terms that you're searching to try to give you better results. Because part of the thing about research is that it kind of takes a while, and I'm going to try to give you some advice on how to make it go more quickly, but there's only so much you can do. You've got to give yourself enough time to do this research. So some things that you can look for to try to make it go more quickly. You're going to look at the title of the article, and see if that seems like something that would help you. You can also want to look at the date of publication. For our purposes, things before like 1980 are probably not going to be all that helpful. Unless you, like, for some reason want to find, I don't know, see if you can find something written when the story was published or something. But before 1980, the way that they did literary analysis is just not how we do it now. Like, they were very concerned with, like, looking in the author's letters and being like, oh, well, this is what the author said, so that's how we know what they're doing. And we just don't really do it that way anymore. So I would say you want to look for things after 1980, would be a good thing to look for. Another thing that you can try to look for is what journal the essays are published in. Like, if you're finding something, it says it's about James Joyce, but then it's in like a business journal, that might not be the thing you're looking for. These are just all things you can use so you don't like waste your time reading a whole essay and then being like, oh, this doesn't actually help me. Um, so yeah, those are some things that you want to look for specifically. You can also like go on the side and type in like that you only want to see things after 1980. Like there's options about like the range from when those are going to be. Essays about literature don't usually have abstracts, but some essays, like maybe if you're looking for something about your topic, there will be an abstract, which is like a little summary before the essay starts. Those are always helpful. Obviously, definitely read that and see if it seems like something that's going to help you. Something else I'll say about sources is like you don't have to find the 100% perfect source, You only need to use one sentence for it to count as a source. So keep that in mind when you're reading through these too. That doesn't have to be the exact perfect thing you're looking for, especially with the databases. I know it can be hard to find stuff. So you just need something where you can pull one sentence from it, one idea from it, a few sentences, whatever it is, put that in your essay, and now you've used it as a source, right? All right, so I think that's kind of my best guidance about using the databases themselves. Let me talk a little bit about the citations here. I know we hate the citations, they're very boring, they suck. So I posted another link. It says MLA, I forget what I called it actually. It says something MLA Citations Purdue Owl. Purdue Owl is the name of the site. That's kind of the go-to place for academics when they're looking for information on doing citations. It's where I would go to make sure I'm doing it right. There's basically two different kinds of citations that you have to do. One of them is an in-text citation. So basically the way this one works is you'll have a quote, right? You'll have a quote from a source or even a quote from the stories, right? You also need to do this when you quote from the stories. So you'll have your quote, and then right after it, you put it in parentheses. You put parentheses, and then you put the author's last name, and then the page number, close parentheses, period. So there's no comma, right? You don't need a comma after the author's last name. You don't need to write the word page. You don't need to put the letter P or anything like that. Just parentheses, last name, Joyce or Wolf or Mansfield, and then a number. So for the documents that I gave you guys, like the scans that I gave you guys to read, there should be page numbers in the corner or whatever. So you can just use that as the page number. Hopefully we know who the authors are. And then, yeah, you close the parentheses, period at the end. That's your in-text citation. I'll show you guys some examples of this the next time we're in class. And then the other thing that you need is your works cited page at the end. So what you're going to do is you're going to, wherever your essay ends, after your 4 pages, you're going to go to a new page at the top. You'll put works cited, and then the like formula for doing this is pretty complex. But if you look on the link to the Purdue Owl website, they have like those little generators, where you can just type in the name of the book and like click on it and it'll just like make it for you. I'm okay with you guys using that for this course. I would, you maybe want to check it. Like if you go on the Purdue Owl thing, you can go down to like works cited, or like they even have something that's really helpful they have on that website is you can download an MLA sample paper. Maybe I'll actually put a link up to that now that I'm thinking. I'll try to put a link. Um, but that'll let you download an entire paper that's all formatted in MLA, so then you can like look at it as an example. But for the works cited entry, there's a lot of rules, there's like the title of the thing has to be italicized. You give the author's last name and then comma the first name, stuff like that. So I would just try to use one of those generators. The one on Purdue Owl, I think the UCC library has one. I know when I was in school, we used to use easybib.com. I don't know if that still works or not, but I would just type it into one of those generators. But you just want to make sure that if you're going to like copy and paste it from one of those generators onto your paper, you want to make sure that you copy it the right way. Because I did it before where like I copied it and then put it onto my paper and then I didn't copy any of the italics, and I remember handing in a paper where it came back and the professor circled all the titles and I didn't have the italics or whatever, and I just forgot to like make sure it was the same. So you just want to make sure that what you put in the works cited is the same thing that shows up from the generator. But yeah, those are the two things: the in-text citation and then the works cited at the end of the paper. And yeah, I think that's what I got so far. So that's, doing some of the research and then having our citations in there. All right, that's it for now. I'll talk to you guys soon.